We're here today at the Peabody Public Library in Columbia City. We are interviewing Clarice Mitchell, who served during World War II. My name is Janet Skank. I am the director of the Peabody Public Library, and also president is Mr. Mitchell's wife. Mr. Mitchell, you served during World War II. What year did you enlist, or what year were you in the Army? Join, or Navy? I'm sorry.
September 17th, 1943.
And were you drafted, or did you?
I was drafted.
You were drafted. And how old then?
I was 23.
You were 23 when you were drafted.
I was married and I had my son was 9 months old when I left home.
Did you expect to be drafted?
Well, not really.
Okay.
I don't know why I was, but I was. And I seemed to pass all the tests.
Okay. So you were drafted. Did you get to choose what branch you went into?
Well, more or less. We were in a line down at Indianapolis going to be interviewed. And I come up to the spot there. The Army guy was busy over here, and the Marines. And the Navy guy didn't have nobody over there. He said, "Hey, Slim, you don't want to go in the Army, do you?" I said, "Really, I don't want to go in the Army. I'd just leave her around and go back home if I could." He said, "Well, you'd fit in the Navy pretty good." I said, "Okay."
So a little bit of chance right there.
That's what I got in the Navy.
And after you went through that interview, where did you go?
Well, after that, we went through an examination, at least the ones that passed, the physical. And they checked you out. Didn't take long.
And then where did you have training then after that?
They took us back home. Then they gave us a date that we had to report.
And how long was that between the time you had to go to Indianapolis and you had to report somewhere? How much time did you have at home?
Oh my God, I don't know.
Weeks, months?
Probably about a week.
Probably about a week.
It went pretty fast.
Went pretty fast.
Yeah.
When you reported for training, where was that at?
Great Lakes.
In the Great Lakes?
Great Lakes up there north of Chicago.
Do you remember how long that took and what kind of things you did when you were there?
Well, it took approximately 9 weeks.
9 weeks?
Yeah.
And after training, what kind of job did you get? What did you do when you were in the Navy?
Well, they put me down in the fire room. I didn't have no choice.
You don't know, okay.
See, I was just an apprentice seaman.
Okay.
That's all it was.
And what did they do down in the fire room? What kind of things did you do?
Well, we made the steam that powered that ship.
Oh.
They had 4 fire rooms, 2 engine rooms. They had 2 fire rooms forward. Then they had an engine room. Then they had another engine room behind this one here, 2 separate ones. Then they had 2 more fire rooms on the back. We had 4 fire rooms, 2 engine rooms.
And what kind of ship was that you were on?
It was a heavy cruiser.
A heavy cruiser. When you say it was fired by steam,
Yeah.
how did you make the steam?
It's powered by steam. Well, they done that in the fire room. We had 2 firesides. There was 14 burners on each fireside. And we run the oil, the crude oil, through a tank that heated that oil. So then when it went into the furnace, it ignited, see. And we had 1,492 tubes in there. the heat went in those tubes, and that's what heated the water. And they heated it pretty fast.
You said the petroleum went through, that's probably why it was so much rationed here for everybody else back in the country.
Well, it was crude oil. So really, I don't know what they had to take out of it. That's what was supposed to be, crude oil. So it surely didn't take too much to get that ready for a ship, because it was old black stuff.
Okay, so you were in the fire room. Did you serve on the same ship the whole time you were in the service?
Yeah.
What kind of places did your ship go, and what kind of things did you do?
Well, we didn't do much pleasure things at all. No, I was in California, so we was in about every coastal town that had a facility to take us, and most of the time when Mariannas Island was the Navy yards, we sat out there in the bay and waited till they had room for us to come over there and pull up alongside the spot.
And where was Mariannas Island?
California.
In California.
It was right close to Vallejo, California, and just a few miles to Frisco, Sacramento.
Did you get to visit California at all? I mean,
Well,
did you get much time off?
We had liberty every 2 days. The port watch had it one day, and then the starboard watch the next day. That's the right side of the ship and the left side. See, that's the way they separated us, port side and starboard. So that's the way they done the liberties, that kind of stuff. And they told you to be back by 8 o'clock. You better be there, because they was top side taking inventory. They was checking the ones that's coming back.
Did you ever not make it back in time?
No, I didn't. I was always on time. I never had to spend 1 second in that brig.
Is that what they did to you if you weren't back on time?
Yes. They
Just
stuck
for
you
being
on
late?
the brig, yeah.
That's interesting.
So I was never late. Right.
What kind of things did you do when you went ashore?
Well, went to movies. Like when we pulled in California coming from Indiana on the train, a bunch of us were assigned to Camp Shoemaker, California, which was a holding place for prisoners of war. And we were assigned there about 2 weeks, till we was waiting on our ship to be assigned to.
You were there before your ship.
Yeah. Well, they didn't know they needed so many people to go on there. And they took a lot of them on our ship. The peacetime crew on there was only 500 people. And when they got done, we had about 1,500.
Made it awful crowded, didn't it?
No.
No? Is it that big? It wasn't crowded?
That ship was 606 foot long, 75 foot wide, and from the deck down to the water it was probably 25 feet. So my jump ship station was about 35 feet from the water.
What's a jump ship station?
That's in case of emergency, we had to leave the ship. I had a spot to go to jump in.
Really?
That's what it amounted to.
Did you practice doing that?
Nope.
No? But they just told you where to go and...
No, but when we went to boot camp, they wanted 100%. We had one guy out of 100 that could not learn how to swim. That son of a gun, he was the tallest one in the group. He must have been about 6, 8, or 9.
Did he stay in the Navy even though he couldn't swim?
Well, hey, everybody tried to help him, and even I tried to help him. I was no teacher, but I learned how to swim right out here at Arnold Gravel Pit.
They didn't have to do too much teaching for you, did they? How about the kind of things, how were you fed? Were you well fed?
Oh, yeah.
Were
Yeah,
you?
they had different stuff every day to eat, like dinner time. And of course, breakfast, they always had oatmeal or cream of wheat or even dry cereal if you wanted dry cereal. Or they about always had scrambled eggs, stuff like that.
And you know, Mr. Mitchell, you said you were married with a child when you joined the service. How'd you keep in touch with them? Was that hard, keeping in touch with your family?
Right.
Did a lot of writing.
And you had to be careful what you said. You could not talk about where you was, so your wife wouldn't know where you are. See, nobody. Yes.
And was that mail pretty regular?
Yeah.
Was it? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, they go over each letter. Yeah.
Somebody went over your letters?
There's stuff on there that they didn't want information to go back. They blacked it out. Yeah. So,
Did you get to leave the shores of the United States then?
do what?
Did you get to leave the shores of the United States when you were on the ship? Was there a time when you left the shores of the United States where you weren't in California but you went to some of the islands in the Pacific?
Well, the only way we got off, just like the Marshall Islands, after we got one or two of them secured, they would let us move over on the beach, like for about 3 hours.
What battle? Were you in any battles then? Were you in any?
Yeah.
Which ones were you in?
Well, when we left, we pulled into Pearl Harbor. So the next day we headed right for the Marshall Islands. Weetalk, I think, was the first island. So there's quite a few islands and different names, you know, in that group of islands.
Okay.
So we just went from one island to the other, just blasting it.
We talked about the ship that you were on. Did you tell me what the name of that ship was?
USS Louisville.
USS
Louisville. Yeah.
Were there other people from Indiana? Did you know anybody else on the ship?
Well, Ralph Joker.
And you knew him before?
Yeah.
Was he from this area, from the Columbia City? Did you go? Were you from Columbia City?
Yeah.
You were from this area.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you ever involved in shore patrol?
Well, yeah.
What is shore patrol?
Well, you got a band there, SP, Shore Patrol.
Okay.
And you had a club.
The club.
Yeah. So, just like I said, a bunch of us would get in the whaleboat and they'd take us over to the island. And all of them guys they was allowed 2 cans of beer. But the guys on shore patrol, they didn't get nothing. The only thing I ever brought back was a coconut. There was a lot of them.
Was your ship ever fired on?
Oh, yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Did you have? You said you were in the fire room. Was that your battle station then?
Well, I had a jump ship station.
Okay.
Battle station, well, as a rule, we had all 4 fire rooms and both engine rooms all ready, see, ready for anything. So there wasn't too many guys that didn't have a watch, see.
Oh, I see.
It took, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it took about 6 of us to run that fire room.
Really?
There was no spares. Everybody had something to do.
After the Marshall Islands, were there any other battles after that, after the Marshall Islands?
Oh, yeah, we kept going. There was Marshall Islands, and Pillaloo, and Truck, and the Guineas, Philippines, Mariannas. It took, well, I was in, I could never tell, I was in 10 battles.
10 battles.
In that 2 years I was on the ocean. So they just, we was a flagship.
You were the flagship. Why don't you tell us what a flagship was?
You got an admiral.
Yeah, admiral.
That's the only way you get an admiral, you have to be a flagship, a leader.
What was the purpose of the heavy cruisers? What did they really expect them to do? I mean,
Well, we had turrets up front and back aft, and they shot the 8-inch bullets,
Okay.
pretty long. We also had 50 Marines aboard ship that took care of the 5-inch turrets. And I don't know how many of them they had offhand, but I would say they had at least a half a dozen 5-inch turrets. And the Marines run them. We didn't argue with them. I never shot a gun all the time I was in there.
Okay. Was there much rivalry between Marines and the sailors?
No, well, we all got along. Yeah, there's only one guy that I never got along with. And he jumped me one night coming out of the fire room. He was Mexican. And I was taller than him. I was lucky there, see. So
Was it just you, or was it just the rest of the crew, or the whole crew that he was angry with?
Well, he was from our fire room. He was in our group, see. And he thought I was pushing him too hard. And he was waiting up there at the top deck, coming up out of there, and boy, he jumped me and started calling me names.
Well, I would imagine that wasn't thought too well of on ship. Did somebody reprimand him, or?
No, I don't think so.
Well, did anybody else know about it but you?
Well, yeah. We was right in an area where there was we had what you call yeomen, the pencil pushers. They had a little office of their own, so they had that kind of work to do. But he heard the commotion out there, and he come out there and he got us stopped. And I told him, I said, I didn't know that he disliked me that much, but he just got mad all of a sudden.
Yeah,
So after that, I just ignored him. He never bothered me again after that.
What are some of the, did you have special rules on ship on things you could do and couldn't do? What were the regulations like?
Well, the dress.
The dress?
While we were out there just roaming around. Or daily we wore overalls and a chambray shirt. And, we all had to dye our hats dark blue color because the light shows up too.
Really?
See, it makes a target out of it. So everybody had to wear a dark blue hat.
Did you smoke back then?
So
Oh, I'm sorry.
then if we come into Honolulu and went on Liberty, we had to wear whites there. Or if you come into California and it was nice weather, you wore whites there. But if you got back here, you wore blues because it's cold.
Who did your laundry?
I done it myself.
Had to do your own laundry.
We had a laundry, but we had a facility that we could come right out of the fire room with our bucket of clothes, go right to the washroom, wash our clothes, take a shower, and put our skivvies back on and go back to the fire room and hang them up. We had a line down there. We had 4 steer down there. See? And they dry in an hour.
In the fire room.
So I never bothered going to the laundry. Only a couple of times I had my, well, maybe more than a couple, my blankets washed. But I washed my own sack covers, pillow slips.
Did you smoke back then?
Yeah.
Were there special smoking regulations?
No.
No?
Only in the sleeping compartments. There was no smoking there.
No smoking in the sleeping compartments. Well, in the movies, every once in a while, if I watch a movie, they'll say the smoky lamp is lit. You know what that was about?
Well, in the big rooms they had for eating in, you know, you had to go through the kitchen, a chow line, then you go from there back into this big room where they had tables set up, and if it was rough waters, you know, you sat on the floor. And you had to sit somewhere where there wasn't any water. A coffee pot hung from a rope from the ceiling.
Really?
Yeah, great big pitcher of coffee. So you had to be kind of careful there.
I would imagine.
But we had our own coffee pot down in the fire room. We had a workbench, and I noticed right away when I got down, I never drank coffee until I got assigned to the fire room. I never even cared about it. Well, I tried it up the Great Lakes, and it was, they had it treated. So if you drank that stuff, why?
You were in the service about 2 years. How much of that time did you spend away from your family?
Well, see, 2 years, 27 months and 2 days.
That's how long you were in the service. You
Yeah,
never got to go back.
altogether.
And you never got to go back.
Just one time, that was from California. Well, I only had 19 days, and it takes about 2 to 4 days to go one way. On them trains back in them days was loaded.
So you only got to go back to your home one time. The whole time you were in the service.
And my wife never got up to Great Lakes when I was up there, and I don't remember of it anyway. So they didn't specialize in visitors up there either.
Can you tell us a little bit about your family's experience during the war? Do you know much about that? You know, who took care of them, or?
Well, her mother and dad, they owned their own house. So I moved my wife and boy back home with them before I left.
Where is back home? Was that in Columbia
Well, I
City?
just rented an apartment, see? Yeah, it was Columbia
In
City.
Columbia City.
Yeah, over on Collins Street, last street going south from city. That's, and when I come home, well, I moved my furniture in there. In fact, they used my refrigerator. I had a refrigerator and they didn't, see? So,
Get it back after.
my sister-in-law needed a stove, so we give her the stove. It's one of them 20 inches, you know, electric,
Uh-huh.
which that's what we had.
Well, while you were in the service, were there any interesting people that you met, friends you made?
No? Oh. Well, I was a guitar picker.
You were?
Yeah, and I could play a harmonica. Now that was years ago. But, I wasn't real good on the guitar, but at least if somebody wanted to sing, I could back him up and chord.
So did you have a band then? Did you play with other people?
Well, they made one up aboard ship,
Board ship.
but I had the only guitar on the whole ship. There was one guy from Tennessee. His name was Carr. He'd come up and plead with me to use my guitar. Well, I give $50 for it. And the day I got it, I was over in Honolulu, and I went in that music shop, and I spied that thing, you know. It was brand new Martin guitar. I still got it.
Good.
And it wanted $50 for it. So all I had with me all I had left was a $20 bill. I said, will you take this $20 bill, and if I come back, I'll be back in 2 days and bring you the rest of it. So I run across a buddy of mine, and I said, hey Joe, I need 30 bucks. I got 20 down. I said, I'm buying a guitar. So he gave me the 30 bucks. I said, I'll pay you back payday. So I did. I drew out enough so I could pay him off.
And that guitar traveled with you
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, I kept it down in the fire room, which was the worst place to keep it.
Oh, really? Why?
In the telephone booth. We had a telephone booth down there, about so big. And I left that guitar, nobody ever bothered it.
Now, that telephone booth wasn't like, you couldn't call home in that, could you? What was it? Could you call home in that telephone booth?
No.
No, I didn't
No,
think
it
so.
just used board ship,
Oh, okay, to use board ship.
yeah. That's all.
How about the USO?
Well,
You ever get to see them? No?
I don't
No,
think
while you were on the
I
ship.
don't think I ever, we had a, down in the lunchroom, midship, that's right in the middle. They had an ice cream. They made ice cream there. There was always at least one guy working in there. They made the ice cream, put it in little paper cups. So, what a lot of guys done, just like me, if we went by and seen they was gonna have something for a meal you didn't like, you didn't have to get in line. Go right down there, stand, yeah, give me 2 cups of ice cream.
Those are like your fast food lines now,
Yeah.
right? That's cool. Did you meet any celebrities?
Well, I didn't meet them personally. Jack Carson and Esther Williams, they was both on our ship, and also banjo. Eddie Peabody, he was a banjo king back in them days. Little skinny guy, he was an officer. But he come on our ship while we was at Pearl Harbor one time.
The celebrities came out to the ships?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, Esther Williams and a couple other women, they come out there and, oh, they wanted to run all over the ship.
Did they?
Yeah. But they wanted to go up that stack.
Did they let them go up there?
I don't think so.
Do you remember where you were when, now, you were still in the Navy, let's see, you left in December 19th, 1945.
See, we always pulled into somewhere around Frisco. So that's the last time that I was in there. So I put in, I wanted to go home.
Was the war over by then?
Yeah.
Was it?
So it took us about a week to get lined up. You know, them trains were just
It's been pretty busy.
jam full. And we had to go, the ones going out had to go to Great Lakes and get released from the Navy.
Okay. Released at Great Lakes?
Yeah, they trying to talk me into staying in. I said, hey,
Weren't interested in that.
I said, I was drafted. I'm not regular Navy, but nobody ever knew the difference, I guess.
Where, you remember where you were when you got word that the war had ended?
Where it ended?
Where you were when you received word that the war had ended?
Oh, well, I was in China. Right after the war was over, they needed some guys to go over on the prize crew. And there were some Jap ships over there in their port. And we had to go there and see that they got stripped of all ammunition, swords, guns, rifles, you know, everything. So I was on that for a week.
What is a prize crew? I'm sorry, I don't know
Well,
what that term is.
There was only 6 of us on this one ship, Jap ship. And our spot was up there on the crow's nest. That's where we were supposed to stay. But every hour, one of us had to go down into the engine room and make sure they wasn't sabotaging the thing so it wouldn't run. All we had was a Jap Luger. Yeah, a Jap Luger, I think it was. I don't even know where they got that. Of course, I had my knife. I always carried a knife. Never had to use it.
Was that regulation or was your personal preference?
Personal.
Personal preference.
But whenever we went down that fire room, we had to go through a big sleeping compartment. So you couldn't see whether somebody was going to jump you or it was awful.
Sounds like it must have been dangerous.
It didn't take me long. I went down there. I knew I was looking for, and I got the heck out of there.
So after the war was over, from San Francisco, is that where you, from San Francisco you went to the Great Lakes?
Yeah.
And then from Great Lakes to home.
Yeah.
How long did that take?
Great Lakes to home.
Well, from the time you hit San Francisco until you actually got to get home. How long
Well,
did
it
it
was
take you?
probably 2 weeks was probably
2
up
weeks?
to them. Yeah, because we spent, I know, a week out there. Every night there was 4 of us. We got together and we rented a room over there. And 2 of them slept in the bed. The other 2, they made a bed out of a chair or whatever. Floor. Didn't make us any difference. I done a lot of sleeping on a steel deck, so that wooden floor didn't bother me.
When you went home, was there a job waiting for you? When you got back to Columbia City?
Well, I worked at the Essex wire plant in Fort Wayne before I left. So, after I got back home, I had 119 days to report back over there to work.
To the Essex wire plant.
Yeah. So I waited till the last day too. So I got over there, and the job I had before I left was weighing label. 24-inch spools and the 12-inch spools. And that's all, you know, done by hand, and a lot of back work to it. So, I don't know, and when I come back home, I went back over there and they stuck me on rewinding wire. And the women got all the good jobs. They got the hair-sided wire. They could set the torque on that and fill up a spool. It'd take them probably 3 hours to fill that spool up. And they're sitting there, you know, where I had number 12 wire up to about 20. And hey, you no more than get them on there in about 3-4 minutes and them things are full. And I didn't like that.
Were there many women in the workforce when you got back? Were they
Yeah,
there? Were
yeah.
they?
Yeah, they had all the sit down jobs.
Did that change? Did it change after a while?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
Of course, I got my fill of it in a short time, and I went in the office, told them I was quitting. So I went back to Plum City and got me a job at the Weatherhead.
Okay.
I worked there about 10 weeks. And all of a sudden we got caught up with the work. And I got laid off. So the next day I went over to Whitley Products and got a job. And I worked there till the Dana Corporation come in, and there was a hiring people for Dana. There was 2 men. One of them was Shriver, the other was Jim Hartman. And, so, I hired in Dana.
Were you able to take advantage of any of the benefits afterwards that veterans were entitled to? You know, the GI Bill? Or
No,
anything
I
like that?
never.
You never used any of that?
No, I was married and had a family, and I just didn't have time. If I didn't do something unless I got a little money out of it, you know, and a little extra money sure came in nice.
How about any of the veterans organizations, the American Legion, VFW, did you ever join any of those?
Well, I've been a member of the Legion probably about 58 years, and the VFW. In fact, I was commander. I couldn't get anybody to come to meetings, so I went to district meetings. They said, well, turn the charter in. So I did.
Uh-huh.
So then it went on about 4 or 5 years later, here comes some guys over at the house. They wanted to know if I'd be a charter member again. Well, yeah. But I said, I won't be commander, but I'll be a member.
What kind of things does VFW do then? Is it a social or
Just social.
just social?
Yeah. Well, we usually got wrapped up in military funerals, you know, stuff like that, or parades.
And they still do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't do it anymore.
Well, Mr. Mitchell, we're about done here. Did you have anything that you wanted to add? Anything we haven't covered, that we haven't talked about?
I didn't even bother looking at all this stuff.
Kamikaze.
Well, my ship was built back in the early 30s.
30s?
Yeah,
Was that an old ship or was that normal?
it was an old one.
Was it?
Yeah. Old steam heat, see. Most of the modern ships had superheat. It was superheat.
What's that mean, super heat?
Well, they fired it different than what we did.
Uh-huh.
And it was higher. Our heating point was only 300 degrees. That was it. Didn't dare go over that or you'd pop a valve. Yeah. So that superheat took less men to run the fire room too.
Did it with the superheat?
Yeah.
Were you ever threatened with kamikazes?
Yeah.
Can you explain to us what that is and what happened?
Well, we was at Lingayen Gulf in the Philippines. We were out there in the water and,
That would have been towards the end of the war, right?
well, that was, along about, I think about June of 45,
June of 45.
somewhere along there. Of course, yeah, Lingayen Gulf's where one of those nitwit suiciders hit us.
They actually hit the ship?
He hit the forward stack and the gun mount. There was two gun mounts right there, a 40 and a 20 millimeter, and they hit part of that and they killed 19 men in the Admiral. Well, the Admiral died wasn't long after that. He got pretty well burnt.
Well, you were in the Philippines, did you? But you took that ship back? How did they get-
We crippled it back to Pearl Harbor,
Really?
which took us about 4 or 5 days. And when we come back into Pearl Harbor, there sat our stack over there waiting on us.
All ready
And
for you.
they said we'd be going back out in 45 days, and we was. 45 days they had that new stack on, and they had to do a lot of work on the casings on the boilers. It just exploded. So they had a lot of work to do on the number 2 fire room. That's the one I was in.
Where were you when the
Well,
actually hit?
I just happened to be top side about that time. They sounded GQ, and I went to my jump ship station.
Ah,
So then they wasn't there just a few minutes. They said so and so and so and so and so and so report number 3 fire room immediately. So we had to go down there and light number 3 fire room off.
ah.
We didn't have them all going, see. I think most of the time they had 2 fire rooms going at one time. But if they got to where they needed more speed, top speed, they had them all go. Both fire engine rooms.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh. I didn't tell you about my buddy Joker, did I?
No.
Well, he was a baker. They had a baker group and they had a cook group.
It was on the ship.
Then they had guys that peeled potatoes. But anyway, he used to live, when he left home, was right down there at 9 and 30 on the south side, where that restaurant is right now. There was about 3 homes in there, and he lived in one of them. And his wife got to come to California a couple times when she found out some way when they was coming in. But he was pretty good today. If I ever wanted anything, like out of the bakery or anything, I'd just go see Ralph, say, I'll fix you up, bitch. He said, come so and so, certain time, I'll bring it. So, we still get together once in a while. Yeah. Yeah, he lives out here at Scott's grocery store, them apartments.
Uh-huh.
He lives in apartment number
3.
3, yeah.
Reunions.
Yeah. So he's a couple years older than I am, and his wife was about a year older than me. I remember her from high school days. And they lived south of Columbus City on a little patch of ground that he bought, and he had a new house built on it. So here, a couple years ago, about the time they got them things built, he decided to sell out his piece of ground out there and go in there.
We have reunions.
You want to tell us a little bit about your reunions?
Well, I think it was when we first started them, I think that it's supposed to be every 3 years. So the first 2 were down at Louisville, Kentucky. Then we had one up right downtown in Chicago.
Were they reunions of the people that served on your ship?
Yeah, yeah. We had a good amount of men showed up back in them days.
When did they start? When did you start having them?
1962.
Okay. Are they still having that?
I'm a charter member of it.
Yes, yes.
You still have the reunions?
Yeah.
You have very many men show up?
Well, the last one we had 40 guys showed up.
And when was that?
That was last August, wasn't it? Yeah. In South Dakota. No. Yeah.
Kansas City.
Kansas City, yeah.
So you have them all over the country?
Yeah. But we had about 40 showed up, and then on Saturday night we would have, as a rule, we'd have a kind of a banquet deal, nice food. And we'd hire a band. Well, they don't have money to hire bands anymore, so I took my guitar and my banjo and harmonicas, and she took her keyboard, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we took a keyboard too. She played keyboard and sang songs. And they really liked that. Yeah, I played Over the Waves.
Over the Waves.
That's a Navy song. And they all got up. And then they started singing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that really touched.
Well, Mr. Mitchell, I want to thank you for your time today and for your story and for your service. I really appreciate you doing this for us.
Well, I guess it didn't hurt me any.